Imagine this.
A man, desperate to make his way to America, decides to take an unconventional route by sailing across the Atlantic Ocean inside a barrel.
Yes, you heard that right. Not a boat, not a ship, but a barrel. This is the bizarre and audacious story of John Adams, a man who attempted one of the strangest voyages in history. And while his journey went horribly wrong, it still stands as one of the most eccentric adventures ever undertaken. It was 1834 when John Adams, an Englishman who had recently fallen on hard times, decided he would try something most people would consider insane. He would sail across the Atlantic Ocean in a barrel. But what led him to make such a ridiculous decision? John Adams wasn't a sailor or adventurer in any traditional sense. He had spent some time working in the merchant navy, but it wasn't the allure of adventure or the thrill of the sea that drove him. Adams was running from his troubles. He had recently faced financial ruin and was hoping to escape his personal demons and make a new start in America.
His plan?
Simple.
Adams constructed a wooden barrel, lined it with iron, and fitted it with a rudder and a small hatch for ventilation. He also packed it with enough food and water to last for a few weeks.
And then, with great bravado, he set off from the port of London. It was a journey he'd made alone, completely self-sufficient, with nothing but his wits and his crude vessel. His goal was to make it to New York, where he could start anew and escape the troubles of his life.
But as you can imagine, things did not go according to plan.
Adam's barrel, though well constructed, was far from seaworthy.
The rudder was difficult to control, and the barrel was constantly tossed by the violent waves of the Atlantic. There were no modern navigation systems, no satellite trackers. He was utterly reliant on the wind and his own instincts. But worse than the rough seas were the psychological tolls. Adams, alone and trapped in a wooden barrel, soon realized just how vulnerable he was in the vast, unpredictable ocean.
He had no escape. He could not steer his barrel away from storms, and he was at the mercy of the elements. As the days passed, Adams began to grow desperate. The food and water he had brought with him began to run low, and his body became weak.
Worse still, he was battling seasickness and fatigue, with the isolation of being trapped inside the small barrel weighing heavily on his mind.
He soon realized that survival was becoming less and less likely. His barrel was simply not suited for long voyages, and the conditions were unbearable.
It's said that, on his journey, Adams tried to paddle and steer the barrel in the right direction, but the strong currents of the Atlantic kept pushing him a course. Adams' journey ended far earlier than he had planned.
After several days or perhaps weeks adrift in the ocean, he was spotted by a passing ship. The crew, initially astounded by the sight of a man inside a barrel, quickly pulled him aboard and brought him to safety. But the story didn't end there. John Adams' bizarre journey made headlines.
His audacity to attempt such a ridiculous feat became the talk of the town.
And he was hailed as a madman, an eccentric, and a man who dared to defy nature and reason. While Adams survived the journey, his story doesn't have the triumphant ending you might expect from such an audacious adventurer.
After being rescued, Adams was not celebrated as a hero, but instead was ridiculed for his bizarre choice of transport.
Some accounts suggest that he was taken in by authorities and treated as a bit of a curiosity, rather than the rugged adventurer he had hoped to be. What began as a desperate escape from financial ruin turned into a lesson in the importance of preparation and the dangers of underestimating nature. John Adams may have failed in his quest, but his story remains one of the wildest, most eccentric adventures in history. He may not have reached America as he hoped, but in a way, he succeeded in becoming part of the annals of history for his audacity.
His story serves as a reminder that sometimes the greatest adventures are born from desperation, and that even the wildest ideas can lead to some of the most memorable tales.